So team, welcome to session 2, networking basics and SSH. Learning objectives: what is network, what is internet, host name and IP addresses, name server, that is DNS, IPv4, IPv4, CIDR, subnet, DHCP, gateways, routing table and firewalls, and private connectivity. Again, this is prerequisite for this cloud training. It is not in the part of cloud as such, but yes, we should know these basics. So we have some participants who say that I'm fresher, treat me as a fresher. I'm treating everybody as a fresher. If you know it, that's good. If you don't know, watch out. Network is a group of devices that are connected with or without wire. It does not necessarily mean that is a printer or wireless devices or server. It can be any device. If the devices are connected with or without wire, wireless or with wire, that connectivity with the systems, that forms a network. Please verify your mic, everybody. You should be on mute because that is creating some disturbance during the session. Okay, now for this purpose what we have is we can connect computers, printers, routers, switches, other devices. I remember my first interaction with the network. Why do we need network? I remember we used to work in an institute and where there were 10 machines and there were one printer. Whenever we require a printout, everybody anybody has to copy the content to the floppy, then take the floppy to the printer where the printer is connected, and then we used to take the printout. There was no concept of printing from remote, or we required 10 printers. Practically impossible to have 10 printers, means every print device require one printer, not feasible. So networking helped this solve these problems. All the machines, all the devices were connected and we could take printout from anywhere to any machine. By default, this concept of networking. Internet, it is a network of networks. Simple definition: global computer network providing variety of information and communication facilities, consisting of interconnected network. That's the definition of internet. So interconnected networks, this is the definition. So we have hybrid networks, different type of networks. They're connected using standard communication protocols. By definition, protocol means set of rules that governs the communication. So we have set of rules which govern this communication, which allows different networks to interconnect. That makes the internet. Host name and IP address, this is important. Sometimes participants don't understand it. Host name is a user friendly name for a machine, or for example theskillpedia.com is my own portal, online learning portal, or google.com. That is host name. So host name is a name assigned to a device or a computer, to a resource connected to a network, and is used to identify that device. But problem is we don't always remember the host name, and this is not the real technology behind the networking. Real technology is we need a internet protocol address or the IP address. So therefore the actual identity of any machine is the IP address, and the domain name is user friendly name of that device. So therefore it's something like we have Sunil here. Sunil must be having a mobile number. Sunil is your user friendly name, I can remember him. But if he share his mobile number, I may not be able to remember that name. So I have to maintain a directory. I have to maintain a notepad where I keep track of whose number is what. So the mobile number and the name. Similarly, host name and the IP address, they must be mapped together. They must be database must be created, and we must resolve the host name with the corresponding IP address. So if I search for the skillpedia.com, I should be able to reach the corresponding IP address where which corresponds to the website or the domain or the host name, the skillpedia.com. For example, IP address of that machine is 172.178.128.36.59. That's the dynamic IP address of my website. So this is IP address is important. This is numerical label assigned to each device connected to a network that uses the internet protocol for communication. There are two ways to resolve this. One is the local resolver. Local resolver is actually within the environment, which is within the boundary of the organization, within one organizational unit. Let's say within geographical area of a kilometer or so, not more than that. That is called local resolver, which will resolve all the machines locally in the organization by means of host name and IP address, and that is kept into a single file. So it maps the host name to IP addresses, also known as local resolver, and the scope of this is local network. This cannot be used for internet. Location of this file is on Windows, it is Windows System 32 drivers etc host file. In this file you can keep the details. Like in my case, if I I have that local resolver configured, and my controller, I can connect to controller which I have put into my website, Windows System 32 drivers etc host. On Linux the file is /etc/host. So it is etc host file where you share the this is where we configured it. Okay, so we just configure this etc host file, and we put the details, and the details are something like this: IP address, you see here, IP address and the controller, IP address and the node name or the host name, IP address and the host name. So this way we configure the IP address with the host name on Linux machine as well. So on Windows, let's take a look at this URL and let me show you this file under etc folder. I'm just showing you the file on my system. Look at this file. This is the host file. So the file should not have any extension. Remember that it is independent file. So if you open with Notepad and save it, that will create problem for you. Don't open it, and if open it, you save it on the desktop. Don't play with this file if you don't know what you are doing, because if you save it right now, it will add an extension .txt to it, which is not allowed. And look at, I have configured this local resolver for my environment, and these are the IP addresses of my virtual machine in my OpenStack Oracle Cloud, Oracle VirtualBox. So this is local resolver. Same way on Linux also we have this local resolver, which is under /etc folder, /etc/host file. So these are local resolvers, and the scope is local network, means within the boundary of the organization, and when you create one network, this is local resolver. Then for internet, for international, what we require distributed database called zone files. Every server has authority to respond on behalf of a delegated zone. The zone is nothing but a database file, and the server which manages this is called name server or DNS server. Simply name server, people call it as simply name server, or the domain name server. A name server implements a network service for providing responses to queries against a host name. It translates a host name to a system internal of a numeric identification or the IP address. Multiple name server can exist in a network, and the scope is worldwide internet. So when you type any website, for example www.google.com, so the URL, the domain name goes to the DNS server. Every domain name have authoritative server, that is called name server for that, and that name server respond on behalf of the query which you send. Like google.com, this is your query, this is your name, domain name which you are sending, or the host name. So there will be one dedicated name server for this who will respond on behalf of it and will share the IP address of corresponding this. So when you type google.com, actually there's a query made to the ISP DNS server. The DNS server will respond with the corresponding IP address, and then IP address is fetched and the website is opened. So technically how it works, it starts from your own internet, from your own local network. I have my local Wi-Fi. For example, I have my Wi-Fi connection shut here. So whenever I open any website, the query goes to the router, my local router, which actually forward my query to the DNS or local DNS of my service provider, which is Airtel in my case, or Jio. So Jio server is not authorized to answer on behalf of my query, let's say the Skillpedia or the google.com. They are not accountable for it, and they are not authoritative for google.com. So they'll send the query to their upper layer to which they are connected. So the query is distributed, and whosoever is this is actually hierarchy. So whosoever is responsible for google.com, that server will respond, okay, hey, I am responsible for it and this is the IP address of it. You send the query reply to the requester. So this is how the name server works, and this is, we can configure name server. I've been configuring and working with name servers in my local environment, and I know how to configure it. So this is how the queries are resolved, and the scope is internet. Conceptually it is also a resolver. Objective is again same. You supply your domain name or the host name, and it will give you the IP address. IP addressing, IPv4 address is a 4-part 32-bit octal notation address, 4 octet of 8 bits each. So like 0 to 255. So it is basically 8 bits, because 8 bits are capable enough to hold value from 0 to 255, because total 256 values are possible. So there are 4 octet in IP address, IPv4 address. Similarly, IPv6 we have 128 bit addressing scheme with a much larger address space, possible number of addresses. There are two types of addresses: public network and private network. Public network is accessible by anyone with an internet connection. Alright, and they have a domain name and an entry in public DNS to resolve their domain name to the public IP address. A private network is a restricted network to which only specific devices are connected. Multiple private networks might have the same host name or IP addresses, but there will be no clash as they are not connected with each other. On the public network, name and IP address have to be unique. Private, you can have multiple network with the same IP address. That's not a problem. So private is restricted, local. Public is accessible over the internet. Broadly, this is the difference between the two. Before I proceed, anybody any questions so far? Any participants? Any question? Okay, that's a good question. So for that, what I'll talk about is octet basically refer to 8 bits, and the formula is 2 raised to power n is equal to m. That's how we represent it. To 2 raised to the power, how many bits you are taking at a time? If you are taking 1 bit at a time, so 2 raised to power 1, that means we can have only 2 possible combinations, so we can count up to 2 only, 1 and 2 or 0 or 1. Maximum counting possible is 2. If we take 2 bit at a time, so 2 raised to the power 2, that means we can have 4 possible combinations, because all combinations are in the form of bits 0 and 1. So if I take 2 bits at a time, 0 and 1, so I can have 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1, 4 combinations. If I take 3 bits at a time, then 2 raised to power 3, that means 8. So I can have 8 possible combinations: 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 1 0 0 1 1 1 0 0 1 0 1 1 1 0 and 1 1 1. I can have 8 combinations. Similarly, if I take 8 bits at a time, I can have 256 combinations, because 2 raised to power 8 is equal to 256. So if I start counting from 0, Maximum number I can reach to 255. So therefore any octet can have value from 0 to 255. So we have 4 such octets: 255.255.255.255. That is the maximum possible value of the IP addresses. Is it clear now? Thank you. Absolutely. We have 128. Yeah, we have 128 bit octet, so much higher scope. There we use 16 digits because we use hexadecimal digits. Hexadecimal digits start from 0 to 9 and A to F. So there we use, you will find hexadecimal digits in the form of 0 to 9 and A to F. So you will find the digits in the form of in IPv6. You will get the digits, A to F, from 0 to 9, A to F. So 16 digits are possible in hexadecimal number. Okay, good. That is CIDR. CIDR is classless interdomain routing. CIDR, introduced in 1993, is a method of allocating IP addresses and routing. Goal was to slow down growth of routing table on routes and on internet. Yes, Sunil. Mhm. Hex, yes, hexadecimal digit. We call them as hexadecimal number. We have different number systems. So in IPv4 we use binary number system, 0 and 1. That's only 2 bits, right? For representation, internal representation I'm talking about. For IPv6 we use hexadecimal. So therefore if you look at any example of IPv6 IP address, you will get different numbers including 0 to 9 and A to F, right? So not IPv6. Look at the examples. Let's search. It makes sense, and no question is a silly question as long as it is a question. So let's check that. IPv6 example addresses. Just look at this IPv6 addresses. Look at this example. So here you see the IPv6 example. Look at this example. We have ADB8, AC10, FE01. You see the IP addresses? So these are hexadecimal digits. You got the point? Representation also. Look at these are hexadecimal digits and they are converted to the binary also. This is binary conversion of these hexadecimal digits. Yes, this is the actual IP address to the binary. It is no. IP address has a IPv6 address a convention. The convention is you can ignore 0. You can omit 0, but you cannot omit colon. So it is only thing is that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 colons. So you cannot ignore these columns. So if you are ignoring multiple columns in continuity, okay, you have to use double colon. Double colon itself means all the remaining colons are ignored because all are 0. Yeah. I'm very clear about it. When I'm saying this, I'm very clear. Look at this 0. This is an IPv6 address, right? And these are all zeros. The zeros can be ignored actually by putting a double colon. We are not ignoring it actually. We are just, this is a convention that if you have leading zeros, you can simply ignore them. Let me put it that way. Had we been 0, 0, 0 here, from here to here, all these three, suppose we had 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, all three octets were 0. So what we could have simply done is we could have simply write 2 colons here rather than all zeros. Yeah. Yes. So double colon is, yeah. Yes, 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 yes. At the bottom. Yeah, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, that is what. Yeah, 16. That's what hexadecimal. I told you, no, 16 bits are there. No, no. Now it is clear. I hope. So I hope. That is also possible. We can connect, but let's keep it out of scope right now because we'll go. then I have dedicated session on IPv6. If you require, I can share the details. No worry. But yeah, yeah. Give if we have opportunity, if we have time, we'll definitely discuss. That is what. No, no. They are convertible. They are convertible. That's not a problem. I mean, you can directly represent any IPv4 to IPv6. Any IPv6, IPv4 have a corresponding IPv6 address. Okay. So let's talk about the CIDR. Yeah. Promote. Sorry. Not converted, I would say. We have corresponding IPv6 address corresponding to every IPv4 address. Other way, no, not no, no, not true. Not true. Not possible. Not possible. Not possible. Definitely not possible. Yeah. So look at this. Yeah. Yeah, Pramod. Yeah, yeah, that is correct. Very absolutely right. I'm right now. Let's discuss this also. This is a part of our training agenda, CIDR, because you'll be using in the cloud actually. Okay, right now what I'm discussing, like if you give 10.0, this part is important, team. Very important. The 10.0.0.0. Now slash, for example, what I want to slash 24. What are the possible number of IP addresses, and what will be the starting IP address, and what will be the maximum IP address? Let's understand the calculation. When I'm saying 24, 24 is how many octates are there? 8 plus 8 plus 8. That means 3 octates, right? Octate, because we are representing the numbers in the form of octate, remember? So therefore, if we are representing everything in the form of octate, so therefore what we have is, we have possible, these are the possible values for us, because 10 is fixed. So CIDR range here is minimum first IP address will be 10.0.0.0. Maximum is it can go up to 255. So when we say 24, that means first 24 bits are blocked, and what we have is maximum only one bit can change. So only one bit can change, means this 0 can change from 0 to 255. So we can have only 256 possible addresses if we take this. Not clear? I am okay with it. It should not be clear with you. Let's do it different way. Let's do 12. If I take 12 bits, that means I am masking 12 bits, not 24 bits. If I mask 20, if I mask 12 bits, what are the possible number of addresses, and from where the address will start? So if I'm masking 12 bits, then I'm not masking 24 bits. I'm masking only 12. 12 means first 8 plus 4 from here, from somewhere in between. So I'm masking first 10 fix. This is first 8, and out of this 8, I'm asking only 4 bits. 8 plus 4, 12. So mask is up to here 12. So if I start counting from here, the 10 will remain fixed. From here, what are the possible values of the 4? It starts from here, 16. Because 0 to 15 is 16, which is 10 to raised to power 4. That means which is maximum 4 bits I have masked. So 10.15 is the last, 10.15 is the last IP address. So up to and finally 2 bits are not masked at all. So possible IP addresses will be starting from 10.0.0.0. Maximum it will go up to 10.15.255.255, and number is this much. Not clear? I am fine. I'll go with another option. I'll mask only 8 bits. So masking is 8 now. Look at the IP address possible. I am masking only 8, means I am masking only 10. If I mask only 10, so I can change only all these values from 000 to 255, 255, 255. So possible number of IP addresses are these many. Still have doubts? Okay, let's change to from 16 to let's make it to 16. So 16 means complete 2 octets are masked, means first 2 are freezed. So first 2 are freezed, and from 002 we can have 255, 255. So possible IP address is 65,536. So this is the formula which will give you exact number of IP addresses with CIDR. This is how CIDR works. Let me go back to the session now, and I hope you will understand it now. CIDR is classless interdomain routing. Introduced in 1993, is a method of allocating IP addresses in routing. Goal was to slow down the growth of routing table, because we had to have a complete masking, net mask and gateways and everything. Yeah, Sunil. Yes, tell me. Here I am. Yes. Yeah, makes sense. Let not make it 12. Let's make it 14, or okay. Let's make it 10 only. All right. So basically, how many bits we have here? This is 8 bits, correct? Correct. A one block. And out of this 8, how many more? Because this 8 has already taken out of 10. Out of 10 total, I have taken 10 is here, right? For the 8, and 2 I'm taking, I have to take from here. So if I take 2 from here, maximum address will be 63, because 2 bits we can, how many possible combinations we can have. So basically calculated from how many we can have. Like if I start with 4, use try different combinations, you'll get the idea. When you try, when you see the examples, you'll get more idea. 4. Yes, that's it. That's it. Look at, I'm borrowing from the first octet here. I'm not even blocking the entire first octet. So we are starting is 000. Maximum we can go up to 15. Yeah, decreased. Decrease. Yeah, look at this. I give 24, so we can have 256. If I give 32 here, you see here 32. If I give 32, then what will happen? So we'll have only one IP address, because we are blocking everything. Everything we are masking. 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, 32, right? Yeah, that depends how many machines you want. Like for example, this network can allow only one machine. If take 30, then how many machines will be allowed? Yeah, you will see that. So it will allow only 4 machines, right? So you change this number here from here 32 to 64. For example, if you want 256 machines, then you make it to 24. See, you will be configuring internet in your cloud, and for that you will be needing how many machines you want to configure. Accordingly, you will be setting your CIDR. So this is basically, we call it as a pool of IP addresses. How many IP addresses you want in your network? That is why I am discussing this, because you will be providing the CIDR so that you can have those many IP addresses in the pool, right? That's the purpose of this. Yeah. So IP address in CIDR consists of two group of bits. Most significant bit is network prefix, identified as network or subnet, and least significant bit host identifier, identifies the host in the subnet. This division is based on the traffic routing between IP address and address allocation policies. Subnet mask, we discussed that, like 16 is a subnet mask represented by value after slash in the CIDR. It can be represented as 255, 255, 255, whatever you want to mask, or slash 16. Larger value means smaller network, as we noticed. Maximum size of network is given by the number of address possible, the least significant bit also after the network prefix. And I gave these examples. 192.168.10.0/24 means only the last we are changing. We are masking 3 of them. So that means 3 octets are masked. Underline. Look at the underline. So that first 3 octets are masked totally. Right? So when we say 22, that means first 2 are masked completely, but this is masked partially. Right? Because 8 plus 8 16, and out of this 8 I have to mask how many? For 22. So 24 minus 22, that means only 2 I have to mask here. And this is actually encyclopedia page, classless internet domain routing. You get more details on this page. And these are examples which I just explained. When you are creating a private network, you specify CIDR based on the RFC 1918. Okay, and I gave these examples. 10.0 means I am masking only first 2 octets. So if I mask first 2 octets, I get these details. Alright, first IP address, last IP address, and total host. And this is what we discussed from our examples. We tried all these examples, right? You can give any IP address. Fine. That gives you, yeah, that is good question. RFC 1918 is a request for comment 1918. Remember, the term request for comment is actually used to develop protocols for networking. That means conventions, not rules, conventions for setting up the IP addresses and allowing and agreeing upon what IP addresses are publicly available, what IP addresses will remain in the private domain for the private testing for private organizations. So this 10.0.0, 172.16, 192.168, all these are available only for private. They cannot be public. They cannot be used for public IP addresses. So RFC 1918 allows only the private addresses, or it specifies what all IP addresses are allowed for public, oh private connectivity. Alright. Absolutely. And this RFC 1918 defines all the ranges which are applicable for private. You cannot have any IP address as private IP address. Got it? Absolutely. I repeat, Sunil, I'll take your question. First thing is, understand, my friend, the private IP addresses which are cannot be used for public are fixed. RFC 1918 defines those IP address range clearly. Let me make it very clear. So again, this is a rule, international standard followed, adhered to every service provider, that these IP addresses are not available for public IP addresses. Like you cannot have 192.168.122.1 as public IP address. Not possible. It can be only private IP address, local IP address. Okay. These ranges are specified by RFC 1918. Sunil, your question now. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Yeah, 172.168. Yeah, yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. True, true, true. No, no, no. You are, that is very clear that they start from zero. They start from first. They don't start midway. So the range is upper limit always. In that case, yeah, in that case you could not have, yeah, in that case, like you would have given 172.0.0.0/12. So in that case you would have started from zero. If you are giving, no, let's start. Wait, no, 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 no. We can. Let's try. Let's try. Let's do the same example. So what was that? 192. Sorry, 172 dot 16, I think. Dot 0 and slash. Let's practice. No. Okay. Now here it is starting from 16 and maximum is going to 31. Correct? Now we can start from zero. If it's, yeah, why not? Let's look at this. Why not? In that case, it will start from zero. It will end up at 16. What is the big deal? Start from anywhere. If you start from 4, what will happen? No big deal. It will start from 4. Look at. Right. You decide. You decide. Within the range, whatever you want, you can specify that. Like if you specified, you can decide. No problem. Yes. If you noticed, I started with 4, but I gave 4. I thought I will be able to start from 4, but no, it is not starting from 4. It is taking from 0. So it is taking boundary. Look at this. This is a very good observation. Look at this very good observation. It is taking the boundary. If I even if I type 4, yeah, it is taking boundary, right? If I take 9, then where from where it should start? I think if it is taking boundary, it will start from 16. It is taking boundary, right? Up to 15 it will continue. But if I take 17, then it will take the next boundary. You see, it is taking the boundary. Yeah. So it is taking the boundary values. You got the point? Yes, yes. Good team, everybody. Yep. Next. So same thing, we have a concept of subnet. Subnet is a means of dividing a network into two or more networks. A portion of network that has a common prefix. Like look at this 10.0.0.16 and divide by 16 means slash 16. So we have first octet is fixed, second octet is half used. So if I'm using half, so I can have we can have two we can have one network, one subnet as starting from starting with 1 second, starting with 2, third starting with 3. We can have multiple subnet here. So if this is our network, these are called subnets, because 10.0 is fixed, right? Because we are freezing first two, uh, we are masking first two octets, and only two octets are allowed to change, so they can change to anything from 1 to 255, 0 to 255, right? Because we have no. Good question. That's what the clarity is required. We require the clarity because this is subnet. When I'm using the subnet, I'm saying the subnet means my one will remain fixed, only the last octet will change from 0 to 255. Because ultimately when I divide by 24, when I divide by 24 slash 24 means I'm freezing first three octets. So this will remain fixed 10.0.0.1. So only this value will change. So I have a network of 255 addresses. This is one subnet for me. Same way, this is another subnet starting with 2. This is another subnet with last value changing from 0 to 255. This is another subnet starting value with 3, but last value 0 to 255. So I have 3 subnet with 255, I mean 256 host each. Yeah, but because first two are already freezed by the network. Look at here, first two octets are already freezed by here, right? The third one is freezed by this 24. Third one means the 2. Yes, extension of first means some more restrictions on that. So we can, how many subnet we can have from 0 to 255? We can have 256 subnets. So how many are defined in this particular figure? Only 3. Absolutely true. Very right. IV4, yeah, yes, yes, bilkul, absolutely, we can define that. I'm basically from Delhi, no problem. Obviously, this is my mother tongue, but I am not allowed to speak. That's okay. Yes, please. Slash 20. Okay. Yeah. Yes. So that will be, would not have been possible. No. Why? Because when you are changing only one octet, that itself is a subnet. Because if you are changing into to 24, you are talking about only one subnet. So there is no further subnetting possible. Because that becomes independent address. Oh, slash 8. Okay, okay. Now it is good. Yes, yes. Yes. Yes, it would have been possible. Yes. Why not? Why? Because practically that is possible. A simple question for me. Simple is subnet basically. What is the definition of subnet? is one network where you can connect all the machines. Remember, you will not be able to connect. Yeah, you cannot divide it further. That is the definition of subnet, right? Yeah. So IPv4 CIDR blocks and NIC. First address in the subnet is reserved for the identifying the network itself. So we never use that to identify the machines. The last address in the subnet, all binary 1 in the host identifier, is used as the broadcast address for the network. NIC is what? Network interface card, the hardware on the device to connect it to the network. IP addresses are assigned to the network interface cards. Fine. Virtual network interface card, what is it? It is a physical NIC, can be virtualized into multiple virtual network interface cards. I already discussed that part. Each VNIC is assigned to a particular virtual machine, and a VM can have multiple virtual network interface cards. And IP addresses are assigned to these virtual network interface cards, which we will be dealing with, which we will be working with in our training. Alright. DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Network management protocol used on internet protocol network whereby a DHCP server. Okay, let me put it in simple terms rather than going by the reading from the slide. Dynamic host configuration protocol is a server which give IP addresses on lease. So the configuration of DHCP server involves configuring the pool, the IP address is on lease, and binding specific IP addresses to specific MAC addresses if required. That this network interface card, physical network interface card, will get only this IP address every time. So dynamic host configuration protocol, very good example is at your home only. When you connect to internet, your router, your service provider has placed a router on it. When you connect multiple devices to the same internet, there's a DHCP server configured and working on that router, on that switch provided by your ISP, because you know every machine will get one IP address. We cannot have duplicate IP address. So if you have 3 laptops, 2 mobiles and connected to the same internet, so you have actually 3 plus 2, 5 IP addresses. Who is giving these IP addresses? The switch or the router provided by your internet service provider. So we can have routers, a DHCP server, even my Oracle VirtualBox add an DHCP server running, because I need not configure the DHCP server, and my VirtualBox can have DHCP server and will give me IP address whenever I need for my virtual machine. So the job of DHCP server is not only IP address but also centralized information can be shared and can be make available through the DHCP server. That's the purpose of DHCP server. Now going through the content of the slide, network management protocol used on internet protocol networks whereby a DHCP server dynamically assign an IP address and other network configuration parameters to each device on a network so they can communicate with other IP networks. It is possible that a device when restarted may get a same IP address as before, or maybe a new IP address may not be the same IP address. DNS entries have to be taken care if such DHCP client computers needs to be resolved with their host name. It will change the settings if required. What is a gateway? By definition, gateway is, as we know, that is a gateway to other networks. So one network connecting to other network require a gateway. So gateway is generally the router or the system internally through which you are connecting to the outside network. So one computer or one router is sitting somewhere in between your network and the outside network. That is called gateway. So it is a path through which inter-network communication happens. IP packets with the destination address outside the given subnet mask are sent to the gateway. The gateway takes care of the routing or sending the right traffic to the right network. It's just like a traffic cop standing in the traffic signal, directing the traffic from one road to another. So gateway can be considered as a virtual router in Oracle Cloud, which provides a specific path to specific type of request. So directing the traffic to the right network is job of the gateway. Routing table within the network. When a node in a network needs to send data to another node in the same network, there is no need for routing table. Why? Because it can simply find the table. So in a subnet, our subnet, let's go back to our subnet. We were talking about this subnet. There is no routing table required for these, if we have all the machines on one of the subnet, let's say 10.0.0, 10.0.3.0, this is one subnet. We can have 255 machines connected to this. These 255 machines will not require a routing table, will not require a router, because they can directly connect. But if we want this subnet to connect with another subnet, we need a routing table, because our route needs to be defined from one subnet to another, and for that we will be requiring a routing table. So if we try to connect one network to another, we require a routing table. So routing table has a list of possible routes. Routing table enables packets to be routed to the correct path to their destination. By definition, this is the definition. Look at this is routing table R1. This R1 is a routing table, and this R1 routing table has a network connected to it. 192.168.5.0 and 10.0.0.8. These are the two network connected, and therefore when a request from 192.168.5.5 try to reach to a machine to communicate to 10.0.0.5, how will it communicate? Routing table will give you, okay, we have a path here, we have a route available here, so this will connect to this machine through the routing table. So routing table is the traffic cop which is standing in between two networks, giving the direction that okay, you can reach from this port to this port, so that they connect different networks. That's the purpose of routing table. How it works? Node sends the network packet to the gateway, which decide how to route to the destination. Each gateway will keep track of which way to deliver for various destinations networks. So maintain in the routing table. Alright. So we have different this is the different networks. You can see that we have different networks, and the different networks are connected to the routing table by means of the gateway. So by definition, routing table gives you the path to connect from one network to another, and that is sufficient definition from here. What is the table? Again, repeat and re-emphasizing the topic. Whenever it needs to send data to another node on a network, it must first know where to send it, means the destination IP address. If the node cannot directly connect to the destination node, then it has to send via other node along with the proper route to the destination node. A node will send an IP packet to a gateway, which then decide how to route the package of the data to the correct destination. So routing table is the database which keep track of the path like a map and uses these to determine which way to forward the traffic. I have emphasized on this at multiple times. Firewall is a network security system, monitors and controls incoming and outgoing traffic. It uses security routes to control control the traffic flow. Typically used a barrier between trusted internet network, internal network, and untrusted external network like the internet. This is just like this. This is a very good example to understand. We have two types of rules for firewall: incoming rule and outgoing rule. Egress means outgoing, rule for outgoing traffic, what all rules will be applied for outgoing traffic. By the way, my team, please note, you will be needing these rules, very crucial part of our training. You will be configuring rules. Without rules, your machine may not respond the way you are expecting. You will not be able to connect to the machine with proper configuration of the rules. So we have two types of rules. Rules for outgoing traffic from our virtual machine or from the instance which we are going to create, and ingress rule means incoming traffic, ingress rules. So we have trusted network. Egress rules means rules for the outgoing traffic, whether allowed or not allowed, what traffic is allowed, what is not allowed. Ingress rules means from the outside network, what is allowed inside our instance, what is not allowed inside our instance. Let me take example. If we have a Apache server configured, Apache server works on port number 80. Therefore, we need to have which rule set in our instance to allow it to connect to the outside world, so that it takes the request on port number 80 from the outside world. We require incoming traffic on port number 80. So therefore it is called ingress rule on port 80. Suppose this machine is connecting to some other instance on port number 22. So what is required? We require egress rule for outgoing traffic on port number 80. That's how we configure ingress and egress rules. Private connectivity will be using VPN used to connect to a private network using internet, which you are using, by the way, in your case, and you are connected to this class through VPN only. I remember, I know it, so you know it very well. Lease line used to connect to private network using telecom service providers network, dedicated line, lease line. Encryption helps to protect data you send, receive and store using a device. Data in plain text is scrambled into unreadable format known as ciphertext using a key and an encryption algorithm used to encrypt the data. Right? That is called cipher text. The cipher text will be stored or sent over the network. When the data is read or reaches the destination, it is translated back to original form, which is known as decryption. So there are two types of encryption, symmetric and asymmetric. Symmetric means they use single key to encrypt and decrypt the data. Asymmetric use a key pair. We will be using this method, second method in our cloud. We'll be creating public key, we'll be creating private key, we'll be sharing the key for other instances to connect, which I have been trying to explain that our environment is going to work in the cloud. We'll be creating instances, we'll be creating database servers, and we'll be connecting to the database server or the virtual machine from our Linux machine. So for that we'll be creating private key, public key pair, and we'll be using the key in our cloud to connect. So that is asymmetric key. So asymmetric encryption is important for us, which we will be using in our training. It's a public key which is shared among users, it encrypts the data. Private key which is not shared, it decrypts the data. It also works in vice versa. Like private key can encrypt the data, public key can decrypt the data. So both way, it works in both way, encryption, decryption. We have different algorithms like RSA. This is the name of 3 developers who worked on it. I leave this as an assignment. Give me the name of the 3 developers with the name of whom this RSA algorithm was used. Widely used for secure data transmission. We have AES, we have DSA, we have ECDSA. These are different algorithms which are used to encrypt the data and decrypt the data and create the key pair. SSH and connectivity. SSH stands for secure shell. It's a network protocol that allows to access a server from a client through PuTTY or through terminal. When using a command line tool to perform SSH connectivity, it is not encrypted and hence not secure, especially on public network. Network sniper can open the packets and using packet analysis. So therefore we should use key based authentication. That is the reason we use SSH keys rather than directly using SSH. So SSH key are based on public key cryptography, a cryptographic network protocol used over the unsecured network, provide a secure channel over the unsecured network. So therefore, as I said, we'll be creating the key pair, public key and private key. There are tools available to create these keys. Windows have PuTTyGen. Through putty.org you can download PuTTyGen and you can create a key pair. Unix we have ssh-keygen command. The lab assignment is for this purpose. We have a dedicated lab assignment which you will with the help of which through which you will be creating the key pair, and we will be focusing on Linux machine, not Windows machine. So you'll be creating key pair on your Linux machine using ssh-keygen. Using the key pair, first create the SSH key pair on the client computer, then upload the key pair to the server, which you will be doing for our cloud. So that's what our environment is actually. I'm trying to make you aware of the environment. So on your Linux machine you will be creating a key pair and you will be taking note of that key, and you will be using that key in your cloud configuration, cloud compute cloud, and your virtual machines. So the key pair is added to this home user .ssh, whatever the username is, .ssh folder, authorized keys files. So use the private key from the client computer to log into the server. For us, this client computer means your Linux virtual desktop, which you are connecting right now, which we were fighting out, and server is our instance in the cloud, which we will be creating. That's all for this session. I am sure you enjoyed it. Thank you.